Welcome back to the Leadership Impact. I'm Kari Granger, and today we have our Inbetweenisode, Paul.
So happy we get to say that word. Inbetweenisode.
I just learned about it this morning. I know, Inbetweenisode. You told me it was totally normal.
Yeah, I would just use it if I decided I was going to do a new podcast that was unplanned, but that's what I love about the Granger Network. You guys actually planned out an Inbetweenisode. We
did. Well, actually, yes, our team did. We did. We planned that out, and I get to look great for it.
Yes. That's what the Granger Network does. Performers look good with the Granger Network behind them. It's like the Verizon commercial. And that's the other great thing about an Inbetweenisode. We can just talk like this.
I know. Okay, well, what are we in between? We're in between performance and momentum.
Indeed. In fact, the first 4 episodes, we covered the source of human performance. How do we delegate effectively? Being effective in the reality that we're the effect of, and how does our upbringing and culture impact our actions today?
Yeah, so that was really all about where does performance start? And we wanted to start there because a lot of times when we look at what is at the heart of performance, what drives performance, we look at things such as training or attitude or vision or decisions. You know, there's 500 variables we look at. And the whole point of this first series was to say, you know what, where performance starts is the very way we see, you know, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to the situations. And we want to give you some tools and perspectives that allow you to shift that so that you can elevate your performance.
Man, and I think it gives us those first 4 episodes gave me a totally different perspective on not just my performance, but how other people I interact with and the way that they perform. Because we so often only think of that action somebody's taking and not everything that's going on under the surface for them before they even went to pick up the phone or go into a meeting.
Yeah, the very range of action that's available to them. You know, Paul, you could tell me, hey, Kari, you ought to do this with your money and that with your money. And I might look at you like you have 3 heads because I don't see what you see.
Yes.
So if you start by shifting the way that I observe money to begin with, finances, my financial life, what I can do with finances, who I am as somebody with finances, you know, you start to shift the way I see.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I relate to all of that, my subjective understanding of it all, then when you start to give me the actions to take, it makes perfect sense. And that's why we wanted to start there.
Well, and I think that for folks, if you this is the first episode that you've tuned into, I cannot say enough about how much it will serve you. Go back, pause now. You could finish this episode later. Go back and get those first 4 episodes. Let that kind of wash over you. Let it maybe shift your perspective a little bit. And it maybe even play an experiment with that. Listen to 1 episode a day on the way into work. And then we give you a takeaway in each episode that you can actually go try during that work day or during that work week, and then bring back, which is going to serve you really well going into our next series, which we're going to cover mood as a performance enhancing substance. Sustaining the ambition will be our next episode, which is sustaining the ambition, which Kari will touch on just briefly. Shifting the deep-rooted conversations that are in your life and the lives of others. And then last is leveraging your physical stance.
Yeah, I love all of these topics. So, you know, if you boil down to the 3 things you said, mood, conversations, physicality. So why are these 3 things important when we talk about momentum? Well, you could say keeping the momentum, or you could even say intervening in performance so as to have momentum. But these 3 things are not our usual go-to things. Like, let's intervene in performance. Great. Let's check out people's moods. How many of us do that?
Mm-mm.
You know, rarely ever. What do? There's a sour mood. We're like, man, she's cranky today. Right?
Yes. They just fold. Like just succumb to the moods of the other people. I shocked one of our new advisors when I had a meeting with a client and there was just small talk. We started with a little small talk and there was a lot going on in their world. And in the small talk, they mentioned it. And I said, we should probably just reschedule. And this is a top 1% household that we were working with. We don't often talk on this podcast about our work in my business, Sound Financial Group, but we watched it and just the little bit of understanding the mood. And our advisor was shocked. He said, I would have never thought of that. And you're exactly right. There was no space for them to talk about this.
Yeah. So your performance, you saw that, you picked up on that, and it was all about the mood, right?
Indeed.
And your performance with this client or prospect of yours, client, you now have an opportunity to perform where you didn't even have an opportunity to perform on that call, right?
Indeed.
So for our listeners, we're going to get into that. How can you recognize mood? How can you use mood to elevate performance? And we're going to have a special episode. It's like Mood Part 2 about ambition, because ambition is so critical. And how often do we get into resignation or, apathy, or we don't have that ambition. So where does your ambition come from? How do you source that ambition? And how do you keep that alive for yourself and others? One way we keep that alive, through conversations. So if we really start to look at, what's the tool or what's the medium that we use as leaders to do our work, is actually conversations. So if you think about, as a leader, what are you doing all day? You're not taking a lot of action, are you?
Nope. In fact, you're either beginning a conversation, continuing a conversation, or trying to put an end to one.
Right. Or you're emailing, which is an electronic conversation, right? Or texting or whatever.
Goodness. And one you can never delete.
Right. Okay, that's a totally different topic. And how much of our conversation matters when it comes to what we're able to accomplish. So I think when we get into conversation, we're going to look at some of those deep-rooted conversations that actually block performance.
Well, I got to tell you, Kari, I cannot wait to get into this next series. Both hearing people's feedback, I'd remind everyone, as you get your biggest ahas from these episodes, I would encourage you, do not hesitate to put a review down, just giving us a sense of what you're getting away from the podcast, because as you post that review on iTunes or wherever you download podcasts, that's going to give us more that we can take to be able to bring you the greatest amount of value and help you with your leadership impact.